Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, What's a Philosophy Degree Worth? In this video, we're going to be looking at, should I major in philosophy? Now, philosophy is often critiqued as a useless major or lauded as the only thing in the world worth studying. You might have taken a philosophy class or two, or just be interested in the field, and now you're asking yourself, should I major in philosophy? Here's a basic guide to some reasons you might want to major in philosophy and some reasons you might not. We're going to cover the 5 positions explained down here, from people that it would be a really bad idea to major in philosophy, people who definitely you should major in philosophy, people, if you really want to, you can, people who should strongly consider it, and those people for whom it's really fully up to you. Not to say that it isn't all fully up to you, but for whom there aren't good reasons for or against it. Let's take a look. So, while everyone uses philosophy throughout their lives, formal philosophy degrees are not for everyone. While I might be a bit of an evangelist for philosophy in general, as someone working to pull philosophy out of the ivory tower, I'm not convinced that formal study is the best path for everyone. So this video really isn't going to be just a sales pitch for philosophy as a major, but rather it's going to be an attempt at a real assessment of whether a formal philosophy major is the right choice for you. Before looking at some specific situations, there are a couple of questions you should ask yourself. How do you see yourself using philosophy in the future? Are you envisioning yourself as a full-time professor, teaching or writing pure philosophy? Do you view it as something that might be useful in a professional job that uses some philosophy but also uses some other skills? Or do you view it as a hobby or a general guide to your life? Another question you might consider is, how much money do you want to make in your life? Will you need that money right away, or are you willing to wait a bit? Do you want to go to a graduate program, and are you willing to shell out the money for a graduate program? Or do you want to go straight into the workforce? Finally, you might think about, are you able to do philosophy in something else? Is philosophy your only passion? Can you double major in philosophy and something else that you care about? Do you feel like you need the structure of a philosophy class to push you to learn more? Or are you happy reading philosophy on your own? These are important questions to consider before thinking about getting a philosophy major. Now, let's start with people for whom philosophy is a bad idea. First off, if you don't enjoy philosophy or you don't feel you're getting any value from it, it's probably a bad idea. There are other degrees that might give you similar skills that you might enjoy more or that might make you more money. Philosophy isn't necessarily just for those who want to grin and bear school because they need a bachelor's degree to get into the workforce. Second, getting a philosophy major is a bad idea if you need to major in something else for a career you really want and you can't do both. If you want to be an engineer and getting a philosophy degree would also prevent you from getting an engineering degree, you should strongly reconsider. If you want to be a doctor, but philosophy would stop you from getting your pre-med qualifications, you're probably in the wrong place. This is not to say that philosophy isn't useful for doctors and engineers, and you should definitely double major if you can. Just to say that you shouldn't sacrifice the opportunity to get your dream career just to study philosophy, because you can do that on your own. You can take a couple philosophy classes, watch some YouTube videos, and understand it better without getting a formal degree that you might be getting at the expense of something you really want to do. Now, let's switch to the opposite end of the spectrum for a minute and look at the people for whom the answer is definitely yes. So, first, and hopefully most obviously, if you want to go to graduate school for philosophy, if you want to get a PhD in philosophy, you should definitely consider getting an undergraduate degree in philosophy. While you may be able to pursue a graduate philosophy degree with some philosophy-adjacent major, if you studied history and focused a lot on philosophy and wanted to go into the history of philosophy, you could probably do it. But the best bet, if you want to go and get a PhD in philosophy, is to get an undergraduate degree first. There's another question that we won't cover here of whether you really want to go into philosophy graduate school and really want to try to get your PhD. But if that's where your heart is set, then an undergraduate major is a very good choice for you. Second, if you're not sure you want to go to grad school, but you really like philosophy and are really considering doing it professionally and going on to get your PhD, you should strongly consider majoring in philosophy, particularly if you can get a double major with something else. Philosophy touches everything. It can complement your second major well, even if you don't end up going into philosophy as a field. The best philosophers of science are those that have a background in the hard sciences, and artists with a background in philosophy understand how to push the boundaries of what is considered art. All right, moving back to the other side of folks that maybe you shouldn't major in philosophy, but you can if you really want to. You might be cautioned away from majoring in philosophy if you need money right away after school and you can't double major in philosophy and something else more lucrative. It might mean philosophy is a bad choice. For reasons we'll talk about in the next video, philosophy majors don't make that much money, or certainly as much money as hard science majors out of the gate, though they often surpass them by the middle of their career. Mid-career philosophy majors do better than a lot of other majors, but early career philosophy majors generally don't do well in terms of money. And we'll talk about more why in the next video in this series. Philosophy majors make more money than most people realize, but often that money shows up later in their career. If you have family responsibilities or substantial debt piling up, philosophy might be a bad choice, but you can swing it if you want to. And often just getting a bachelor's degree in something is going to be increasing your earnings substantially. So if your alternative is another major that wouldn't be making you much money straight out of school, philosophy could still be a good choice. In the next few videos, we'll explore what you can do to make some money with philosophy and how to sell your degree in a job interview. You also might fall into this category if you see philosophy as a hobby and you're convinced that you can understand and learn philosophy on your own from reading books and watching YouTube videos. If you love philosophy but don't see much benefit from actually taking the classes, you might go to some classes you like but not choose to pursue the major because you don't need it on your diploma and you can keep learning philosophy without it. There are plenty of armchair public philosophers that don't have philosophy degrees but have a strong background in it because they've read and understood the philosophy themselves and have communities where they can debate it and argue it, separate from a traditional classroom. Next, shifting back to the other side, you might strongly consider a major in philosophy for several reasons, but we're not quite in the definitely yes. If you want to go into law, politics, public policy, or business, and you expect to need a graduate degree to do so, like an MPA or a law degree, philosophy can be a really good choice. Philosophy majors are some of the best scorers, if not the best scorers, on graduate entrance exams like the GRE. Philosophy is very often the top major for the GRE. The GMAT, philosophy often ranks around 5th above computer science, economics, and chemistry for the GMAT, and the LSAT, where philosophy ranked 2nd in 2021, only behind economics. Additionally, many of these careers use a great deal of philosophy in them. Lawyers and politicians need to make persuasive arguments, just like philosophers, often using thought experiments or relying on works of ethics and justice to do so. You might also strongly consider a major in philosophy if you love it, but think it would be hard for you to learn philosophy without the structure of a classroom. Philosophy is hard to get started in because so much of the language is very technical, something I've tried on this channel to alleviate to a certain degree. But because often philosophy is kind of a web of interconnecting ideas that all relate to each other, there's not really a good starting place. And then once you have a firm grounding in it, such as having a major, it becomes much easier to read and understand new philosophy on your own. So if you think you're in this category of someone that can't pick up a philosophy book offhand and read it and start to understand it because you don't have that background, it might be a good idea to get a philosophy major, if only to build your own background so that you can, in the future, go out and read one of those books and be able to pick it up quickly. Now, if you don't fit clearly into any of these categories, then the choice of whether to major in philosophy is really up to you. There aren't any good or bad choices here. Philosophy is a fantastic field that looks at big questions of the universe. What's right and wrong? Does God exist? Can we know anything? Is there life after death? Do animals have rights? What makes a government just? Philosophy can also train you in many important skills like analytic thinking and reading comprehension. If you can read Hegel, there's no technical manual you can't understand with some work. And if you can clearly explain Gödel's incompleteness theorems, there's nothing you can't synthesize and communicate. But even if everyone can get benefit from philosophy, getting a philosophy major isn't for everyone. You might be happy just taking a few classes and studying philosophy on your own, or subscribing to some great philosophy YouTube channels, such as this one. And while we're speaking of meta things, I'd like to give a big thank you to our Patreon supporter of the week, Avatar, for supporting Carneades.org on Patreon since 2016. You too can support the channel and get access to Patreon exclusive posts for just $2 a month, less than the price of buying me a cup of coffee once a month. If you want to support public philosophy, please do consider donating and supporting our work here on Carneades.org. With that, are you out of college? Or if you are out of college, what made you decide to or not to major in philosophy? And if you're still not sure if philosophy is for you, check out the next couple of videos in the series to learn about what you can do with a philosophy major and how to sell your philosophy major, both to your family, but also in a job interview. If you want to make sure you don't miss those upcoming videos, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.